welcome to my channel where I talk about movies. The movie I want to talk about today comes from 1945. This is Rome, Open City. It is directed by Roberto Rossellini, starring Magnani and Aldo Fabrizi. And this is currently streaming on the Criterion channel. It's also in the Criterion collection under a three-movie box set called The War Trilogy, along with Paisan in Germany, Year Zero. So I must confess, starting off, that I've always had a bit of a blind spot with Rossellini. I've seen most of his films, even the historical epics, but they've never drawn me back in. But recently I read a review of Journey to Italy, one of Rossellini's most famous influential movies, a review by Eric Romer, and a light bulb went off, and I was able to see the connection between Romer's style of directing, the kind of movies he made, in relationship to Rossellini. So I picked up Tad Gallagher's biography of Rossellini, The Adventures of Roberto Rossellini, His Life in Films, and it indeed is Rossellini on the cover there. And then Michael Bartlett did a recent video of his top 40 favorite directors of all time. Rossellini was third on that list, and he said that he had done his thesis on Rossellini. So it's time for me to give Rossellini another look. Now, the background to Rome Open City is this history here is just pretty amazing. And I know some historians have said that the Second World War in its totality is probably the greatest story ever told. And certainly Rome in 1944, when the film is set, the movie was filmed in 45, is certainly a big part of it, of that story. So what had happened was Mussolini was deposed in 1944, and 1943 rather, and then he went to Salo, where the remnants of his government were in power, protected by the Germans. But the Germans stayed on in Rome, and the economic condition, freedom was the economic condition was awful. Freedom was precarious. There was a curfew every night. Anybody could be stopped on the street and whisked away. The Gestapo was there. There was a significant partisan revolt. The Germans were looking for these partisans, and this is the story of what life was like. The people who lived there, and especially in the partisans' battle against the Germans, who still remain. Now, this period of time lasted into 1944. I think it was about 9 months before the Americans landed at Anzio, and then a couple weeks later they were in Rome. So it was a very precarious existence for anybody, and this is the story of two opposition groups against the Gestapo, against the fascists. One would be the Marxists, the communists. One of the main characters is in fact the leader of this partisan group, and he had fought in Spain during the Spanish Civil War, and so he's Italian, back in Rome, and he meets a colleague in this partisan group who is about to be married in an apartment building. They live on the same landing. The woman he's going to he's marrying is Magnani, who is a widow. She's pregnant. They're about the friend of the main leader of the partisan group. The friend is about to be married, and so this is the Marxist element, the communist element, fighting the fascists. And then we have what could be called the Christian humanism, element, and especially Christian humanism here, because one of the main characters is a priest. And these are events, the Anna Magnani character and the priest character are closely resemble actual events that took place in Rome during the German occupation. So there's the priest, a humanist, not a communist. He nevertheless aids the partisan group in hiding them and bringing messages and bring them money. And also ID credentials. So he's a very important cog in this group, even though he is not a communist. And certainly the priests in the Catholic Church were very much against communism during this period. So we get very, very much this sense of place here. And basically the film is a kind of two-part story. So the first part, we're basically setting up what the partisans are doing, what life was like, introducing the main characters, especially the Anna Magnani character, who's very important in this movie. And then the first half ends with a terrible tragedy, and the second half begins, and we're basically focused on the Gestapo. We're in the Gestapo headquarters quite a bit in the second half of the movie. And so we get a blending here of neo-realism and melodrama. And there's a lot of melodrama in this movie. The neo-realism, what made this film so important was that Rossellini and his crew went out into the streets. So we're seeing what Rome looked like during the occupation of the streets, and how the people had to live, and just the precarious nature of life. In a kind of documentary, it was accused by Italian critics at the time that he had made, and producers, that he had made a newsreel. This isn't a film, it's a newsreel. This was something really different in 1945, to be able to see what life was actually like under the occupation. And then the second part, we're in the Gestapo headquarters, and here is where the melodrama really kicks in. The Gestapo commander has a significant role in this, in these sequences, because we're set in his office, and architecturally it's very weird, because off to the one side is the torture chamber, and we're going to see some activity in that torture chamber, and then the room off to the other side is where all the German officers meet. And it's sort of like the recreational room. They bring their women there, they get drunk there, they play cards. And it seems very odd, but then in the climax of the film, it does all sort of blend together. These three rooms sort of come together. And the Gestapo is played by an actor who Rossellini was trying to convince, wooing Anna Magnani to be in the film, and Anna Magnani was a revue singer and dancer, and she was and comic kind of actress on stage, and there was a dancer in her show who Rossellini, he wasn't really an actor, but Rossellini looked, he said, "This is who I want," and an obvious homosexual. And then his one of his chief aides is a woman, and she's obviously a lesbian. And this Italian directors at that time, Visconti did it as well in The Damned, they associate homosexuality with the Nazis, which sort of it heightens the melodrama, because now we're seeing evil. I mean, we're seeing real evil in these two people, because they are very evil. There's betrayal, and there's a very explicit, hard to sit through scene of torture that you would never believe could be put on the screen in 1945. It really packs a punch towards the end of the film. Rossellini, this was not Rossellini's first film. He made a number of films, and he was sort of associated with the fascists in that one of his best friends was Vittorio Mussolini, who was the son of the dictator Benito Mussolini, and he was sort of in charge of whatever Italian film industry there was. And so Vittorio produced some of Rossellini's early films, which were, I think, mostly documentaries. There were some fictional films in there as well. But Rossellini was able to, even Vittorio Rossellini said years later that Rossellini was never, he was never a fascist. He was never part of the group. He just wanted to make movies. And Vittorio was was mad about making movies. And so this second half, the lighting even becomes very expressionistically. So we've got this sort of documentary feel that's mostly in the first half, which we would associate it with neo-realism, and then we go full-blown melodrama at the end of the film. I have to mention Aldo Fabrizi, who plays the priest, in just a magnificent performance. He was a comic actor. He never played drama, but they really wanted him to play the part. When he heard the script read to him, he cried. He said, "I got to play this part," but he wanted way too much money. They didn't have much money at all to make this film. They didn't even know where they were going to get the film stock from. So Federico Fellini, who was working on screenplays, part of the Italian filmmakers at the time, filmmaking group. He was only 24. I think he was pretty famous for a very popular comic strip that he drew, but he wanted to be in movies. So he was brought in, and he was friends with Fabrizi, and so he went and he sort of convinced him to go for the lower part, or the lower cost of what he wanted to make the film. And then the screenplay, there's various stories how the screenplay was written. There was a screenwriter. The original story was just to focus on the priest, and then they added the Magnani part to the film. So, and the screenwriter's name, Arietta or something similar to that. I didn't write his name down. Really, the screenplay seems to be mostly him. Even in the sort of the beginning part, the tragic scene, that was his concoction. Right at the last minute, of course, Rossellini went along with it. Rossellini wasn't all that interested in story in the sense of the melodrama. He was interested in sort of documenting how people reacted to each other. At least that's what Tad Gallagher, that's his analysis of Rossellini's interest in the film. But they knew they had a terrific screenplay. So Fellini wrote a few scenes too, especially for Fabrizi, for the comic scenes. One very significant scene involving the priest, and then a really comic scene where he goes into, the priest goes into a antique store, and there's an image of a saint, and right next to it is a statue of a naked woman who's facing the priest. So the priest turns it the other way, and then it's her derriere facing the priest, so he turns the priest statue around. And Fabrizi is really good in this scene. A very funny moment. So Fellini is very much part of Rome Open City. And so in the book here, which the Tad Gallagher's biography, which is a doorstopper. I didn't realize it was going to be this big when I ordered it from my library system. He goes into incredible detail. I mean, it seems like every bit of research he did is in this book. Going through Rossellini's life, he was basically a playboy. He was a womanizer to the max. Cocaine user. He was brought up by a wealthy father who eventually loses all his money. But then during the occupation, his life was in danger as well as just about any Italian man on the street. They were looking not only for partisans, but also for men who could they could ship back to Germany to sort of labor camps. So the reception of the film, so they finish it, and they know they have a remarkable film, but their producer couldn't stand it. He said, "This is documentary. This is not what I was looking for." They took it. They did find another producer. He took it to the Cannes Film Festival. I think this may have been the first Cannes Film Festival, and it totally bombed with the critics in Italy. But then it was shown to the people, and the people for the first time were able to see, what life was actually like for them. This was a revolutionary film, and it played well overseas, especially in the United States. It got great reviews in the United States. It played in one New York City theater. It played for 20 months. So this and I think it's sort of the birth of neo-realism, but it's kind of fascinating in the point that it is a more conventional melodrama in the second half. First half, we get a real good illustration of what is to come as far as neo-realism goes. Okay, thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.